Hello and welcome live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up over the next 1 hour. Sri Lanka's President Anurakumar Dissanayake arrives in New Delhi in his first overseas visit after assuming office to meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. US and Arab leaders call for a stable transition in Syria, urged respect for minorities after the end of the Assad regime. Cyclone Chido brings strong winds and heavy rain, destroying buildings in northern Mozambique after leaving a trail of death and destruction in France's Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte. And tons on day 2 of the Gabba test by Travis Head and Steve Smith pit Australia in the driver's seat at 405 for 7 against India in a delicately poised series. Global powers are calling for an inclusive government in Syria as daily lives return to normal under the country's new rebel-led government. Western nations like the US and France have also made efforts to establish direct contact with the new rulers in Damascus. Details in our next report.
Syria's neighbors and global powers are treading carefully in their approach to the country's new government led by rebel leader Abu Muhammad al-Gulani. The United Nations envoy for Syria, who is in capital Damascus, called for justice rather than acts of revenge following the ouster of Bashar al-Assad by rebel forces.
We need to see, of course, justice and accountability for crimes. And we need to make sure that that goes through a credible justice system and that we don't see any revenge.
A French diplomatic mission will travel to Syria next week. Turkey has said that it's ready to provide military help to Syria if the new administration requests. The country, which also backed the Syrian rebels, said that its priority is the elimination of Kurdish militias in Syria, whom Ankara blames for separatist activities at home. This comes after top diplomats from the US, Turkey, EU and Arab nations met in Jordan on Saturday to discuss the situation in Syria. They stressed that the new government in Syria must be inclusive and should respect minority rights.
We all agreed on the principles that the new leadership of Syria should also follow. That is very important to all of us. That is stability, sovereignty, territorial integrity of Syria, but also respect for the minorities, no radicalization, institution build-up, unity of government that includes all the groups in Syria, and also accountability for the crimes committed.
The changes in Syria also have ramifications for the Israel-Hamas conflict. Hezbollah has said that it has lost a military supply route in Syria with the fall of the Assad government.
It's true, Hezbollah lost a military supply line via Syria, but this is a detail of the work of the resistance.
Earlier, Gulani said that he was not interested in new conflicts with Israel. Meanwhile, Lebanon's caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati has urged the international community to assist Syrians return home.
The international community, particularly Europe, should assist in the return of Syrians by engaging in early recovery efforts in secure areas with Syria.
Amid the diplomatic maneuvers, normalcy seems to be returning to Syria with schools reopening in Damascus. Syrian Christians attended the first Sunday Mass in the capital since the fall of the Assad regime. Bureau Report, DD India.
Neighbours India and Sri Lanka are looking forward to advancing their ties further with the first overseas visit of the island nation's recently elected President Anurakumar Dissanayake to New Delhi for 3 days. The Lankan leader is set to meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. Here's more.
A warm welcome to the recently elected Anura Kumara Dissanayake in New Delhi by India's Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, L. Murugan. The Sri Lankan President on Sunday began his maiden three-day state visit to India after assuming office. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called on the Lankan leader within hours of his landing in New Delhi. Prior to his arrival, while announcing Disanayake's visit, India's Ministry of External Affairs had said President Dissanayake is set to meet his Indian counterpart. He'll hold discussions with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two leaders will take up bilateral issues of mutual interest. He will also participate in a business event in Delhi. The event is to promote investment and commercial linkages between India and Sri Lanka. The Lankan President will also visit Bodh Gaya during his India visit. The Foreign Ministry further said that Sri Lanka is India's closest maritime neighbor. Sri Lanka also holds a central place in PM's vision of Sagar and India's neighborhood first policy. Sagar stands for security and growth for all in the region. Sri Lankan leader's visit to India assumed significance after his party's victory with a two-thirds majority in the recent parliamentary election and amid his government's efforts to rebuild the country's crisis-hit economy. The invitation for the visit was extended by India's External Affairs Minister, who travelled to Colombo shortly after Disanayake's electoral victory. Dr. Jaishankar was the first foreign dignitary to visit Sri Lanka following the National People's Power or the NPP alliance's government's rise to power. India remains among Sri Lanka's largest trading and investment partners. It provided a multifaceted assistance to the island nation of over $4 billion during its 2022 economic crisis. Bureau Report, DD India.
Let me now bring in my colleague Amritpal Singh for more on this. Hi Amrit, now how significant is the new Lankan President visit in the context of overall India-Sri Lanka relations?
It is a very significant visit, Gautam. The very fact that the Sri Lankan President chooses India as the first foreign port of call after assuming presidency in September this year speaks about the importance Mr. Dissanayake attaches to this relationship. It's traditionally been a very important relationship. India has been a significant partner, as the closest neighbor to Sri Lanka, either by land or maritime, sharing a maritime border. So you become natural partners. You're the first responders in any point of crisis. They have friends in other parts of the world. They have lenders like China and Japan who are bigger lenders than you, but still you remain a significant lender to Sri Lanka. When the economic crisis hit them, you help them in a big way, which I'll delve on at length a little later. So it is an important visit. Politically also, your relationship has been important, though it has had its ups and downs. Now Mr. Dissanayake wants to begin on a clean slate, strengthening the political relationship between New Delhi and Colombo, various issues related to trade, investment, because their economy is in doldrums, would come up for discussion, strengthening maritime cooperation, given that you share a common security concern when it comes to the Indian Ocean region, free and fair and unimpeded flow of sea lanes and sea traffic through the region would be discussed. The issue of the fishermen and of course India's developmental assistance and various ongoing development projects there, and also the reconciliation process in the north and east of Sri Lanka would figure in the discussions between the two leaders and their delegations tomorrow at the Hyderabad House here in Delhi. So it's a significant visit, Gautam.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned it a bit, but India's assistance to Sri Lanka during its 2022 economic crisis is a big marker anywhere in the world, really, for neighborly relations. Now, what does it mean for bilateral ties going forward? Does it have weightage to the extent that a lot of people might feel that it should?
Well, it does. It does carry a certain weightage because when economic crisis hit them, you help them in terms of assistance to about to the tune of $4 billion. You'd already provide them assistance of about 600 million clear grant to them. You're working in building their infrastructure, be it schools, hospitals, for the offshore petrol vehicles, for their navy, etc. So you do stand by them in their hour of crisis. You help them with oil supplies when oil supplies, the crude oil was crude and both consumption oil was short, and there were long queues and the country's economy had come to a virtual halt. You did respond as first responders. They realized that during the run-up to the elections or in general in the Sri Lankan polity, there is a certain sense of trepidation that they look at with India with because of various factors, because you're the bigger neighbor. So there are apprehensions that exist in some quarters, but there also is a feeling that India has steadfastly stood by Sri Lanka in their hour of crisis, and Mr. Dissanayaka's visit would want to build on that. He's not just meeting government, he's not just meeting the Prime Minister and his delegation, but he's also engaging with business leaders, where he'll be seeking more investments into his country, more manufacturing in his country, more increasing trade and commercial linkages between the two sides. So clearly it does have a bearing of how the relationship has transpired, and especially the role you played when they were hit by economic crisis.
Right, and Amrit, right now, of course, Sri Lanka has pressing economic needs, but the backdrop that the new president comes from, his economic worldview has been a different one compared to perhaps the kind of a manner in which Sri Lanka needs to move forward at this moment. So, how is he going to deal with India and countries like India when he wants to ensure that his country heals in the manner that he's seeking to heal it?
His both political views and economic views on cooperation with India have have not really been ones that would signal that he is a friend of India. But Mr. Dissanayaka is a realistic man. He realizes now he's the president of the country. His first and foremost priority is to secure his country's economic and geostrategic interests, and he sees India playing a central role in that. And therefore, when External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar had visited Colombo right after after his inauguration, he had said that he would not allow any activity from the soil of Sri Lanka that's inimical to security interests of India, because that's a concern with India too, with all kinds of Chinese ships docking into Colombo and Hambantota. It does raise concerns for India, security concerns for India. So I think Mr. Dissanayaka realizes that was then and this is now. He needs to fine-tune that, and he needs India to go forward on getting the economy of his country back on track. So I think that is the mindset with which he would have come with Delhi. But that's not to say that there are no divergences. Yes, divergences exist, but I think what will transpire behind the closed doors of Hyderabad House tomorrow would be how to build on the convergences and narrow down the divergences. Gautam.
All right, let's see what happens. Amrit, thanks for joining us for the time being. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. The Republic of Moldova opens its embassy in New Delhi. Dr. Jaishankar and Moldovan Deputy PM jointly inaugurate the embassy. American news network ABC News agrees to pay $15 million to settle a defamation lawsuit filed by Donald Trump. And 5 Bali 9 ring members returned to Australia after 19 years in prison in Indonesia.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar jointly inaugurated the Embassy of Moldova in New Delhi on Sunday, along with the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of Moldova, Mihail Papsoy. In his address at the opening of the Moldovan embassy, Dr. Jaishankar said that both the countries have witnessed growing engagement in areas such as trade, education, technology and cultural exchanges.
A deeper engagement with Europe. It is natural that we will focus on various bilateral relationships, including obviously that with Moldova. We have witnessed, as you have heard, a growing engagement between our two countries, spanning trade, education, technology, and cultural exchanges. Moldova's warm embrace of India yoga traditions and practices, of Hindi language and Indian culture. I think these are reflections of our close people-to-people ties.
And Dr. Jaishankar also held discussions with the Moldovan Deputy Prime Minister Mihail Papsoy, who is on an official visit to India from the 15th of December, which is Sunday, to the 17th. Now, with his inauguration just a little over a month away, US President-elect Donald Trump is making strategic moves to shape his second term. From appointing loyalists to top intelligence roles to resolving a defamation case with a major American news network, Donald Trump's return to the White House is already making waves. Here's the latest.
US President-elect Donald Trump has appointed David Nunes, head of his social media platform Truth Social, as chairman of the White House Intelligence Advisory Board. Nunes, a former Republican congressman from California, gained prominence as chair of the House Intelligence Committee during Trump's first term, where he was a staunch defender of the president. Trump also named Richard Grenell as a presidential envoy for special missions. Grenell, who previously served as US ambassador to Germany, broke barriers in 2020 when he became the first openly LGBT cabinet member as acting director of national intelligence. These appointments come just weeks after Trump selected loyalist Kash Patel to replace Christopher Wray as FBI director, signaling his intent to fill critical roles with trusted allies ahead of his return to office. In a separate development, American news network ABC News has agreed to pay $15 million to settle a defamation lawsuit filed by Trump. The case arose from comments made by anchor George Stephanopoulos, who claimed in an interview that Trump was liable for rape, sparking controversy. As Trump readies his administration and resolves high-profile disputes, his latest moves highlight a calculated strategy to rebuild a loyal inner circle. With just weeks until his January 20 inauguration next year, the political stage is all set for his return to the Oval Office. Bureau Report, DD India.
Now, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has announced on Sunday that 5 members of the Bali 9 drug smuggling ring have been repatriated from Indonesia. The transfer follows diplomatic negotiations between the two nations earlier this month, aimed at finalizing the agreement.
I'm pleased to confirm that Australian citizens Matthew Norman, Scott Rush, Martin Stevens, C.E. Chen and Michael Shugai have returned to Australia this afternoon. I want to express my gratitude to President Prabowo for Indonesia's cooperation and commitment to working with Australia on this matter. These Australians served more than 19 years in prison in Indonesia. It was time for them to come home.
Now, negotiations between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is the DRC, aimed at ending the ongoing conflict in eastern DRC, were cancelled on Sunday after reaching a deadlock. The talks, mediated by Angola's President João Lourenço, had raised hopes for a resolution to the violence caused by the Rwanda-backed rebel group since 2021. Rwanda demanded direct talks between DRC and the rebels, which the DRC rejected, accusing Rwanda of supporting the rebels. The summit was halted as only DRC President Felix Tshisekedi attended, while Rwandan President Paul Kagame remained absent. The failure of the talks leaves thousands displaced and the region facing a worsening humanitarian crisis. Impeached South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol did not appear for questioning on Sunday after being summoned by prosecutors over his brief imposition of martial law. This comes a day after lawmakers voted to impeach Yoon, accusing him of undermining civilian rule. He has been suspended from office, with Prime Minister Han Duck-soo serving as interim leader. The court has 180 days to make its decision on Yoon's impeachment, but opposition leaders are urging a swift ruling to address the political crisis. And South Korea's acting President Han Duck-soo had a phone call with US President Joe Biden as well. During the call, President Biden reiterated the United States' commitment to the US-South Korea alliance, saying that it remains ironclad and unchanged. Joe Biden added that the US will work with South Korea to further develop and strengthen the alliance as well as trilateral cooperation among South Korea, Japan and the US. Prime Minister Han became South Korea's assumed acting president following Yoon Suk-yeol's impeachment on Saturday. Meanwhile, South Korea's opposition leader urged a top court on Sunday to swiftly formalize the impeachment of President Yoon and ease the suffering of the people after his short-lived martial law decree. Now, Cyclone Chido has devastated France's Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte, killing at least 14 people and leaving 246 injured. The powerful storm, with gusts reaching 226 kilometers per hour, destroyed homes and infrastructure, leaving thousands without electricity or clean water. Neighboring Mozambique and other southern African countries face ongoing threats from the waning weather system. Rabindra Chauhan brings us more.
French Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte has been struck by the worst cyclone to hit the islands in nearly a century. At least 14 people are reportedly killed in Mayotte on Sunday when fierce cyclone battered the territory. Rescue workers and supplies have been airlifted and delivered by sea, but efforts are hampered by damage to airports and electricity infrastructure. Authorities report that 9 people are in critical condition and 246 seriously injured, while clean drinking water remains in short supply.
What matters is not only the short term and the rescue and help we can provide, but also the medium term with the supply of water and food, in particular for sensitive facilities including prisons, migrant detention center, and that of course is a compounding risk factor.
Mayotte's more than 300,000 residents have been ordered into lockdown as Cyclone Chido bore down on the islands around 300 kilometers east of Mozambique. Its gusts of at least 226 kilometers per hour have completely destroyed the territory's many shanty towns.
It obviously was a disaster. All makeshift homes have been completely destroyed. So this climate event was absolutely tragic. The state, the agencies, the ministers are mobilizing.
More than 15,000 homes are without electricity. Electricity poles were hurled to the ground, trees uprooted and sheet metal roofs and walls torn off improvised structures inhabited by at least one-third of the population. Just northwest of Mayotte, the Comoros Islands, some of which have been on red alert since Friday, have also been hit, though less hard than the neighboring archipelago. Cyclone Chido later slammed into Mozambique early on Sunday, bringing gale force winds and heavy rain when it made landfall around 40 kilometers south of the northern city of Pemba. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has warned that 1.7 million people are at risk from the ongoing storm. The cyclone's remnants could bring heavy rainfall to neighboring Malawi until Monday, potentially causing flash floods. Zimbabwe and Zambia are also expected to experience heavy rains. Bureau Report, DD India.
San Francisco residents were woken up by a tornado warning early Saturday morning during a powerful storm system that battered the region with heavy rain and wind. It was the first ever tornado warning for San Francisco, but not the first tornado. The National Weather Service issued the alert for northern San Mateo County and parts of downtown San Francisco after radar detected a cyclonic rotation strong enough to trigger the warning. Although tornadoes are uncommon in the area, the conditions were severe enough to warrant heightened caution. Pakistan signed a $330 million loan agreement with the Asian Development Bank to enhance social protection programs, focusing on education, healthcare and poverty reduction. Meanwhile, the World Bank cancelled over $500 million in budget support loans, citing unmet conditions, including power purchase agreement revisions under the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. Brazilian President Lula da Silva was discharged from hospital after undergoing emergency surgeries to treat and prevent bleeding in his brain. He addressed the media shortly after being discharged. Lula said that while he was 79 years old, he has the vigor of a 20-year-old to build the country. Lula will continue his recovery from his home in Sao Paulo. He'll also undergo a CT scan.
You know, I defend the right to live up to 120 years. I say that whoever will live up to 120 has already been born, and I believe that I have the right to reclaim that this is me. So I have a lot of expectations. I am a very disciplined person. I have a huge commitment to this country.
And still to come on DD India NewsHour. We'll be speaking with our expert guest about the first bilateral state visit of Sri Lanka's recently elected President Dissanayake to India. And the Maharashtra cabinet has been expanded with 39 ministers being inducted.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. And before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Sri Lanka's President Anurakumar Dissanayake arrives in New Delhi in his first overseas visit after assuming office to meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. US and Arab leaders call for a stable transition in Syria, urge respect for minorities after the end of the Assad regime. And Cyclone Chido brings strong winds and heavy rain, destroying buildings in northern Mozambique after leaving a trail of death and destruction in France's Indian Ocean territory of Mayotte. Let's now take you back to one of our top stories, the maiden visit of recently elected Sri Lankan President Anurakumar Dissanayake to India after he assumed office in September. The tour started on Sunday and will be on till Tuesday, when he'll meet his Indian counterpart and Prime Minister Modi, apart from having other engagements. To talk about it further, we have Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former senior diplomat, with us. Good evening to you, Ambassador. What do you make of the prospects of this visit in the context of when it's happening soon after the election, and then, of course, a further strengthening of his hands really through the parliamentary elections as well for Anurag Kumar Dissanayake?
Thank you very much for having me. No, I think it's a super important visit, Gautam, because this is a leader who actually belongs to the JVP. And most Indian observers will know what kind of party JVP was 25 years ago. So what AKD, as he is known, has done is to really try and emerge from the ashes, as it were. He has reconfigured the political landscape in Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka itself has emerged amazingly from the kind of trouble that it had in 2022 when there were the Aragalia protests and the Sri Lankan presidential palace was stormed. And comparisons are often made between Bangladesh and Sri Lanka as to how the democratic roots are very strong in Sri Lanka and that Sri Lanka has managed to come out. But the point is that India has also helped Sri Lanka enormously. We have been the first responder to Sri Lanka when Sri Lanka faced an enormous economic crisis. The last point I will make is that in the southern flank of India is extremely important. We need to keep it stable. Sri Lanka is the linchpin of our maritime policy, Sagar and neighborhood first policy. There is nothing much you can do about northwest and northeast in India because they continue to be turbulent. But I think the southern flank of India, to keep it peaceful and prosperous, I think Sri Lanka is the linchpin. I'm particularly happy that the new Sri Lankan president has followed his illustrious predecessors by choosing India as the first maiden international visit.
Yes, and how significant is that considering the kind of situation that Sri Lanka still finds itself? It may have weathered the economic crisis that it faced in 2022 with a lot of help from not just India. India being first responder, of course, did help. There are others who pitched in as well, including the IMF. But even now, it's not completely out of the woods. So what do you think he would be seeking at the moment from India?
No, you are right. Sri Lanka is certainly not out of the woods. I think Sri Lanka looks to India for a couple of things. One, they would like a lot of the loans to be converted to grants. And you will recall that when the External Affairs Minister had gone in November to invite the President of Sri Lanka personally to come to India, and he had carried a letter from Prime Minister Modi, $20 million worth of loans were actually converted to grants. I think Sri Lanka would like more of that from India. There will be a review of important projects which are being implemented in Sri Lanka, such as the Kankasenturai port, the Trincomalee oil tank farms, the Colombo terminal, the port terminal, etc. I think most of all, what Sri Lanka needs is India's long-term commitment to economic and financial recovery in India. And that will mean that we will have to then weigh in with the IMF and the World Bank to see that Sri Lanka is helped out. Secondly, we ourselves give them solid support in terms of long-term economic and financial assistance. And finally, the President of Sri Lanka is extremely interested in projects such as the Aadhaar project and the cooperative in Gujarat, that is the Amul cooperative. And he visited those installations when he came in February to India. So I think those are the kind of projects where I think India can lend assistance to Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka is a very literate country. It is true that, as you say, Sri Lanka is going through a problem. But I think if Sri Lanka can demonstrate to South Asia and to the world that despite having a problem, democracy works, and that they will be able to come out of this economic problem that they have, I think that will be a very, very welcome development in South Asia, and India would have had a very significant role to play in the re-emergence of Sri Lanka.
Certainly, and India, I'm sure, will be receptive to the kind of assistance, if that's the kind of assistance the Sri Lankan president is seeking. What are India's own keen interests as far as Sri Lanka is concerned? Because it is, of course, the closest maritime neighbor, and there is a tremendous amount of concern there as well to ensure that sea lanes are kept free and freedom of navigation. The rule of law is maintained, in the Indian Ocean region beyond, in the vast beyond Sri Lanka's shores as well.
If you go through the joint statement which was issued after the visit of the External Affairs Minister to Sri Lanka, I found it interesting that, of course, we have committed ourselves always to the territorial integrity and unity of Sri Lanka. But more importantly, the new president of Sri Lanka has committed to the External Affairs Minister and India that Sri Lanka will not allow any forces to operate from Sri Lanka which will be inimical to the security interests of India. So that is the geopolitical importance of Sri Lanka, which abuts the Indian Ocean. As you know, there are concerns that we have about foreign naval vessels which may call in Sri Lankan waters, especially nuclear submarines and those which have the ability to pick up satellite data from southern India. So that concern will be extremely important, Gautam. I think we need to have a clear understanding with Sri Lanka that while we will go all out and help Sri Lanka emerge from the economic problems that they are facing, I think we need some appreciation of our security concerns. My sense is that Sri Lanka will be aware of those security concerns, but I think if the Prime Minister can himself convey those concerns to the Sri Lankan President, that will make a very big difference. Last but not least, I think it's important to understand that without Sri Lanka, it's very difficult to have a southern maritime policy or a Sagar, as you call it. Sri Lanka is the linchpin of the Sagar policy that we have. Don't forget that we also have the Colombo Security Conclave, which comprises India, Sri Lanka and Maldives. Bangladesh was added later, but of course Bangladesh finds itself in a fair bit of difficulty. But I think if India, Maldives and Sri Lanka, and that is the reason why tonight the Sri Lankan president is expected to meet not just the External Affairs Minister, but he's also expected to have a session with the National Security Advisor of India.
All right. And in terms of how there has been, of course, traditional links between India and Sri Lanka, there are people-to-people ties as well. If one wants to take the relationship to the next level, particularly in trade and investment, connectivity has again been an issue that has been pursued in the past as well. Do you think that will remain a big part of the engagement this time around as well?
Oh, absolutely. Connectivity is important for two reasons. One, India provides the bulk of the tourists for Sri Lanka even today. So Sri Lanka will want the tourism sector which had taken a big hit during COVID and then the Aragalia protests. They will want tourism sector to be restored. So nothing better than having Indian tourists in Sri Lanka. The second thing, I think, frankly, from a medium-term perspective, the best outlook that I personally see is to have Sri Lanka integrated economically with southern India. That has been on the anvil for a long time. We are not able to do the comprehensive economic agreement for a variety of political reasons. Be that as it may, I think Sri Lanka's best bet is that we must have Sri Lanka integrated with at least the southern India. And if you can have that kind of a regional integration, that would be great for Sri Lanka's economy. It would be good for India. And I think it would be good for the region as well.
Certainly. Let's hope that these things are kept at the foremost when the leaders meet and talk about taking ties forward. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it, Ambassador Kumar.
Thank you.
Now, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Sunday levelled serious allegations against the previous UPA government, led by the Congress, regarding its handling of relations with China. Speaking at a book launch event, Dr. Jaishankar accused the UPA government of agreeing to a strategic partnership with China in 2005.
Today people are talking about transparency. You know, in 2005, and may come as a surprise to some of the younger people in the room, in 2005 we actually agreed with China that we were strategic partners. Now, was there a debate in this country that we should be strategic partners with another country which occupies 38,000 square kilometers of your territory and has claimed to 70,000, 90,000 more? In fact, I remember when the strategic partnership was decided, I had army people come to me and ask me saying, you know, they were scratching their head saying, I mean, explain this to us. Similarly, in 2006, it was agreed that we would start negotiating or look at a preferential trade agreement. Was there consultation with industry on it? No, I don't think so. I mean, today the transparency issue is coming up with regarding to borders. Okay, in 1995, we resolved the Sundarangchu issue. That disengagement agreement of 1995 still has the highest level classification in Government of India. So when people talk to about transparency, let us remember what the history is.
Now, the Bastar Olympics concluded with a grand closing ceremony in Jagdalpur, Chhattisgarh on Sunday. India's Union Home Minister Amit Shah graced the event, which saw the participation of approximately 3,000 athletes representing 7 districts of the Bastar division. Chhattisgarh Chief Minister Bhupesh Baghel also attended the ceremony. While addressing the gathering, the Home Minister emphasized the role of sports in empowering tribal children, stating that such initiatives will pave the way for new opportunities for them.
बस्तर ओलंपिक आने वाले दिनों में बस्तर के विकास की यश गाथा बनने वाला है और ये बस्तर ओलंपिक आने वाले दिनों में नक्सलवाद की कॉफिंग पर अंतिम कील ठोकने का काम भी करने वाला है। ये बस्तर ओलंपिक लाखों लाखों गरीब आदिवासी गांवों का कल्याण का माध्यम भी बनने वाला है। खेलों की शुरुआत है, ये जो विकास की शुरुआत है वो आने वाले दिनों में बस्तर के आदिवासी बच्चों के लिए विश्व भर की क्षितिजों को खोलने का काम करेगी।
Now, following a resounding victory in the Maharashtra Assembly elections, the state cabinet was sworn in on Sunday in the presence of Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis and his deputies Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar. Governor C.P. Radhakrishnan administered oath to the ministers at Raj Bhavan in Nagpur. A total of 33 cabinet and 6 MOSs were sworn in into the Grand Alliance's government. 19 ministers from the BJP, 11 from Shiv Sena and 9 from the NCP. The cabinet expansion has taken place 10 days after Devendra Fadnavis took oath as Chief Minister, while Eknath Shinde and Ajit Pawar took oath as Deputy CMs. On the eve of Vijay Diwas, an at-home was held at Army House in Delhi on Sunday. India's President Draupadi Murmu presided over the event. The eve was hosted by Chief of Army Staff General Upendra Dwivedi. The event was attended by Vice President of India, Defence Minister, Chief of Defence Staff, Chief of Air Staff and other top brass of the Indian Army, along with foreign dignitaries. India celebrates Vijay Diwas, commemorating the historic victory over Pakistan in the 1971 war. A short film highlighting India's self-reliance in defence was also screened on the occasion. In Ladakh, the Indian Army, in collaboration with the local community, celebrated Sharkila Victory Day at the Government Higher Secondary School in Silmu, Kargil. The event commemorated the historic liberation of the strategic Sharkila Pass during the 1971 Indo-Pak War. The program featured cultural performances by students and a Veer Gatha session narrating stories of valor. The Indian Army honoured villagers, students and teachers with mementos in recognition of their contributions. And still to come on DD India NewsHour. The mascot, logo, jersey, torch and anthem for India's national games have been launched. Lower house team of Indian Parliament has defeated the upper house in a friendly cricket match in New Delhi in the interest of charity.
Welcome to Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India NewsHour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Bangladesh is all set to celebrate Victory Day on Monday as well. On this day in 1971, Bangladesh was liberated from Pakistan. The High Commission of India and Bangladesh, in an official social media post, announced that both nations commemorate the Liberation War of 1971 by inviting each other's war veterans and serving officers to participate in annual Victory Day celebrations. Let's now take a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. A drone hit a building in Grozny, the capital of Russia's Chechnya region. This comes after Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov said that Ukrainian drones had been targeting the city. He added that 2 Ukrainian drones were shot down by the air defenses. There has been an oil spill in the Kerch Strait after a Russian oil tanker carrying thousands of tons of oil products split up during a heavy storm. Russian investigators have opened criminal cases to look into possible safety violations. Pope Francis was welcomed with cheers and tears by people in Corsica during the first recorded visit by a pontiff to the French Mediterranean island. Pope Francis has a jam-packed schedule which includes a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron. Thousands of people took part in the 9th edition of the Run Santa Claus Marathon in Kosovo's capital Pristina, with participants dressed as Santa. The marathon raises money for charity. In several Chinese cities, including capital Beijing, trees have been adorned with colorful sweaters, adding artistic elements to the winter landscape. Visitors have been flocking to get clicked with the trees, which have become a landmark. And now it's time to get you all the sporting updates as well. Well, cricket first, and Steve Smith and Travis Head smashed centuries as Australia posted a commanding 405 for the loss of 7 wickets on day 2 of the 3rd test against India in Brisbane. Smith notched up a hard-earned 101, while Head marched on to a swashbuckling 152 at the Gabba. The duo batted throughout the entire middle session, unravelling India's hard work in the morning. It took Jasprit Bumrah to salvage something from a tough day for India. The pacer took 3 wickets after tea to finish the day with his 12th 5-wicket haul. Pacer Akashdeep and spinner Ravindra Jadeja remained wicketless. Alex Carey was unbeaten on 45 and Michelle Stark was on 7 at stumps. The 5-match series is tied 1-1. Delhi National Stadium hosted a T20 cricket match between members of Parliament to support a tuberculosis-free India. Lok Sabha Speaker 11, led by Anurag Singh Thakur, scored 251 runs, with Thakur smashing 111. Rajya Sabha Chairman 11, despite Mohammad Azharuddin's best efforts, fell short at 178. Lok Sabha Speaker 11 won by 73 runs. The event blended cricket with a social cause, uniting lawmakers to raise health awareness.
On Sunday, Delhi's National Stadium hosted a captivating cricket match between members of parliament from both the houses, blending sport with a social cause. The event was organized to support campaigns for a tuberculosis-free India. Lok Sabha Speaker 11, led by Anurag Singh Thakur, won the toss and chose to bat first. The team put on an impressive show, amassing formidable total of 251 runs in their allotted 20 overs. Captain Anurag Singh Thakur led from the front with a flamboyant knock of 111 runs, emerging as a top scorer for his team. In reply, Rajya Sabha Chairman 11 struggled to keep up with the steep target. Despite valiant effort by former Indian captain Mohammad Azharuddin, who top scored for his side, they managed only 178 runs, falling short by 73 runs. Union Minister of Commerce and Industry Piyush Goyal handed over the winner's trophy to Lok Sabha 11 captain Anurag Singh Thakur.
In the last few years, we have done well. Prime Minister Modi has given a call to make India TB free. And India has achieved a decline of 38% in the TB deaths. And also the new TB cases have come down by 18%. That is because of the efforts of the government. But at the same time, we still have a daunting task to make India TB free. For that, we need to create awareness among the elected representatives. So we have the MPs being part of the team. When they go back to their parliamentary constituencies, their states, they will speak about the making India TB mukt. And I'm sure the target for 2025, we all are going to play a lot of cricket matches during the coming months across the country to create more awareness among the masses.
The match not only highlighted the passion of cricket among India's lawmakers but also emphasized the importance of using sports as a platform to drive awareness for critical health issues like tuberculosis. Narayan Singh's report for DD India.
Now, in a bid to promote inclusivity and empowerment of people with disabilities, the Neuro Aid and Research Foundation organized a bilateral wheelchair cricket match between teams representing Delhi and Haryana in New Delhi on Sunday. The event was attended by national parachuter S.J. Sridhar Rayala, who praised the initiative and promised to support similar events in the future. The event was a celebration of determination, teamwork and inclusivity. The initiative is aimed to spotlight the exceptional talents of Divyangjan athletes while fostering a spirit of community engagement and empowerment. Neuro Aid and Research Foundation is dedicated to empowering individuals with special needs through innovative programs and initiatives that inspire awareness, acceptance and inclusivity.
पहले तो मैं एनआरएफ का और उनकी पूरी टीम का थैंक्स करना चाहूँगा। जो दिव्यांग डिसेबिलिटी है, जो फर्स्ट इनिंग होती है टफ होती है, इसमें तो कोई वो है ही नहीं, लेकिन जो बेसिकली जज्बा होता है वो आपको आगे जीने के लिए वो आगे मोटिवेट करता रहता है। तो बेसिकली इसमें सबसे ज़्यादा है कि आपको हारना नहीं है, आपको देखना है कि बस मैं कर सकता हूँ और इसमें कुछ भी कोई बहुत बड़ी चीज़ नहीं है। नॉर्मल पीपल की तरह हम सारे काम करते हैं।
Our objective to promote this is to make sure that the disabled people, the Viklang people are benefited. NRF is born with a very simple thought: how can you help patients who cannot afford to pay? Healthcare in India is of very high quality. However, charitable institutions are not many. Government institutions are very affordable, free of cost. Private institutions, charitable institutions have to come to support them and complement their efforts.
Now, the mascot logo, jersey, torch and anthem of India's national games were launched in the northern city of Dehradun on Sunday. The mascot of the games is Molly, which is the monal bird. India's northern state of Uttarakhand will host the 2025 National Games from the 28th of next month till the 14th of February. The 38th edition of the Games will feature 32 sporting disciplines and 4 demonstration events. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami, Union Minister of State for Sports Raksha Khadse, President of the Indian Olympic Association PT Usha and other dignitaries were present at the event. India's Sports Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandviya extended best wishes to athletes for the upcoming games.
आज हम 38वें राष्ट्रीय खेल के शुभारंभ लोगो, जर्सी, स्लोगन और एंथम का लोकार्पण कर रहे हैं। इस अवसर पर मैं आप सभी को हार्दिक बधाई और शुभकामनाएं देता हूं। इस बार राष्ट्रीय खेल का थीम ग्रीन गेम्स रखा गया है।
India's Minister of Youth Affairs and Sports, Dr. Mandviya, will be flagging off the Fit India Cycling Tuesdays initiative in New Delhi on the 17th of December, which is Tuesday. A key program of the Fit India movement, the cycling event is aimed at promoting a healthier and greener India. Its objective is to create awareness towards improving the air quality index in the national capital. The initiative will unfold at over 1,000 locations. It will be continued in the form of cycling events taking place every Tuesday across the nation following the launch. The inaugural event will witness elite athletes, fitness influencers and important figures, besides the general public, taking part in the 3-kilometer-long cycle ride. India will host World Athletics Continental Tour event in Bhubaneswar on the 10th of August next year for the first time. The Athletics Federation of India made the announcement while releasing the competition calendar for 2025. The Continental Tour is an annual series of track and field competitions held under the World Athletics. It's the second tier of international one-day event after the prestigious Diamond League. The bronze level tour meet is below the gold and silver levels. Prasar Bharati has recently launched Waves, entering the field of OTT platforms. Waves provides a complete infotainment ecosystem to digital media and OTT audiences. If you also want great content for free, then you can download Waves today. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India NewsHour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India NewsHour.